Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inside the Birds pregame show. I'm Geoff Mosher alongside Adam Caplan. And as we always do, we bring in our tape breakdown master, Greg Cosell, to give us the preview and the tape breakdown on two teams that are going at it on Sunday in Week 7. That's the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Minnesota Vikings, and they'll be playing at US Bank Stadium in Minnesota. So it is another road game for the Eagles, who have lost 2 straight games, first time since 2023, as they take in a 4-2 record to play the Vikings, who are still, again, going to be on Carson Wentz. So this will be the second time the Eagles play against Carson Wentz since he left the Eagles. They are 3-2, and they've had kind of a strange, inconsistent start to the season that has been somewhat filled with some injuries. So we will break this game down. And Adam, I start with you. And by the way, the Vikings are coming off their bye week, and before that, they went into the bye with a 21-17 win over the Browns. So this is, we talked about earlier in the week, a crossroads perhaps for the Eagles, where you're looking to see if they can pick up the pieces and start to get back on track, whereas a loss would raise some even more questions about the future of this team. But I know that some people have called it a must-win game. A little too early for that label?
Yeah, I mean, how's Week 7 a must-win? I mean, yes, they're having a two-game losing streak, the first potential 3-game losing streak since 2023, and that was a disaster. We won't even go over that season. People don't want to go back to that. They don't want to cry. And the misery of it, of really just a horrific time in recent Eagles lore. But look, it's a game. Look, they want to bounce back. The coaches will always tell you that they don't worry about what's said in social media, but they're human beings. They know. They're aware. They have kids. A lot of these guys have kids. They're aware. You know, what happens when they come home. They ask kids ask questions and bring it home. They try not to bring their jobs at home, but they're just not playing great. And this is a tough matchup. Now the Vikings, Geoff, as you said, win loss. Like they've been very up and down. Lots of injuries to their offensive line. They're hopeful that they're going to have most of these guys back. You mentioned Carson Wentz. He's starting again. We'll get into what Greg thought of the tape. But yeah, this is a fascinating game. By the way, the Vikings have not had a home game since Week 3, September 21st. That's when they blew out the Bengals, and ironically, Wentz's first game where he didn't really have to do much. And remember, Geoff, they were just overseas for I don't know if this has happened before, where a team decides, you know what, we're good with playing overseas two weeks in a row to do that. So they both were away games. The Steelers game lost a heartbreaker, and then they were able to beat the Browns.
Yeah, I think the Jaguars did it either last year or the year before, but I don't think this was new because they went from Ireland, right, to England. I don't think anybody has done that where you're making 2 trips within Europe.
Yeah, not England, right. And remember, the Jaguars away from home is in England because of Shad Khan. He's got the soccer team over there, and Shad lives over there.
Right.
But this is weird. By the way, it's their choice. They don't have to do it, but they agreed to it, and the league probably loved them for it. They got their bye week, and they should be well rested.
They should be. Greg, we had you break down, as we always do, the tape of the Eagles offense and defense on Inside the Tape. We do it every week on the Inside the Birds platform. So I want to ask you for sort of a big picture observation from the tape on the Vikings. Who are they? What are they after 5 weeks so far, or 5 games?
Offensively, let's start there. They've clearly been a better offense with Carson Wentz. Now, I think that Wentz, for the most part, has played well. A lot of the things that sort of hindered his career toward the end of the Philly days, and then after that, although he actually did have a very good year in Indianapolis, except for a few bad moments, but he actually had a pretty good year.
Sure.
But he's been, I would say, much more controlled in the way in which he plays. Now, there's always going to be moments, Geoff, where you see him overstride, where you see him hurry himself a little bit, and the ball becomes a little high, a little scatter shot. But Kevin O'Connell is so good with lower body mechanics that he really has him kind of a little more tightly wound in his lower body mechanics more consistently. Now, the key with quarterbacks that do have tendencies to lose their lower body mechanics is you need to get pressure on them, because then they speed up and everything speeds up and they revert back. But he's played very much under control. He looks calmer in the pocket than sort of his more recent iteration. And he's made some really, really good throws. And obviously when you have, Justin Jefferson, you have Addison, who's now back, and you have a really well-schemed passing game that presents a lot of clean, defined looks. He's actually played well. He's not getting sacked very much. The ball's coming out. He's throwing shorter passes when he needs to, which was always an issue in the past. But obviously, Kevin O'Connell on the staff is working with him on that. He may never be the best at it, but he's better than he was. And so therefore he's not holding the ball, and he's not taking unnecessary sacks, and he's not playing recklessly, because very often he'd hold the ball and then run around, and he's not really you haven't really seen him run around very much.
Though I'll add, when he moved around, when he ran he looks healthy. That's another thing I just want to know what Greg said. He did when he had his scrambles. If you remember when he tore the IT band, the ACL, 8 years ago. So we're almost at the 8-year mark in December of 2017. That IT band is on the side of your leg, and he just had that hitch that trying to run. He seemed to have a hitch in his running. He doesn't have that right now. He thought he looked pretty good running it. So we'll see what happens, man. This is a fascinating game, Jeff.
He just looks more controlled, Jeff. Yeah. He just looks, like he's, again, he's more experienced. You have to believe on a certain level he's humble to some extent. I mean, don't forget he did start that last game in Kansas City last year, and he was awful. I think they lost 38-0 to Denver, and he was awful. He was awful to the point where you thought, is this guy going to, be back in the league? I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just that's what the tape showed. He was awful. And he's been rehabilitated to a large extent by a guy that's a really good quarterback guy in Kevin O'Connell.
Very much so. Yeah, watching his tape just in a few games that he's played this year was very interesting because, like you said, Greg, he does things better. And then there's like the one or two. I know he took 6 sacks against Pittsburgh. There's those 2 or 3 times where if you could speed up his clock and get him a little frenetic in the pocket, he's still liable to either take a sack that he didn't need to take or do something wild. But you're right about the control. You can see that they're on schedule a little bit more than you would have thought that they would be with Carson.
I'm sure a lot of people thought when they played Cleveland with that D line and pass rush that could be a game where he'd get sacked 8 or 9 times and be running around. And it didn't play out that way at all. He was very much under control in that game.
Right. Actually, he didn't turn it over. By the way, he's also coached by Josh McCown, which I'm glad.
I'm glad you mentioned that because when I was mentioning Kevin O'Connell, Josh McCown, who I know as well, is he's very, very good. And the combination of those two guys, really coaching him is a big deal. It's a really big deal.
This is really odd. So Kevin O'Connell, he hired Josh McCown, but what's interesting? Charlie Fry, another former Cleveland Browns quarterback, is on the defensive staff.
How about that?
Charlie Fry. Yeah.
I still remember the game. I want to say 2017. Eagles play the Falcons Monday night. Carson Wentz has to leave the game with an injury, and McCown comes in and rallies them and gets them.
18. Would have been
18. I'm sorry. What did I say? 17. Yeah, 18. Yeah. He gets them into the deep within the 5, I think, inside the low red zone, and he's doing great. And then they yank him and put Carson right back in. And I think Aguilar drops a touchdown pass. I have a weird total recall from that, but yeah, that was an interesting game. So imagine your position coach is the guy who used to be your backup. That's got to be a very fascinating dynamic there in that room.
For sure.
All right, so let's talk about this game. We'll get into it. First, we'll start with the injuries. I would say the Eagles got some good news and some maybe not so good news from their final injury report. The good news, of course, is that Quinyon Mitchell is going to play. He was a full participant on Friday. He's not even carrying an injury designation. He is going to play, and he's not questionable or anything like that. That is very good news. And Landon Dickerson is listed as questionable, but he did practice in full on Friday, so that's also good. Same thing with Jordan Davis in the shoulder, Zach Bond with the thumb, good to go. The weird one, Adam, right, is because we talked about this. Jalen Carter is listed as questionable. He was limited the last 2 days of practice after being full on Wednesday. Now, without knowing what's going on behind the doors there, behind the scenes, we did say, let's watch after he was a full participant on what happens the day after, because you always want to see response to that kind of a practice. And whatever the reason, the Eagles' response was, we're pulling back and limiting him. So I do think coming off a game that he missed and an extra rest, for him to be limited the last 2 days of practice and being questionable should probably raise some concerns.
I would be concerned. I would be. I thought, because look, I know you can't always trust what players say because they're very optimistic. They're the ones who are dealing with the injury. And he seemed to be pretty resolute that he was going to play when he told, in fact, our Andrew DeCecco was there right in front of him when he said it. I believe whatever the media availability was, Wednesday or Thursday. But the fact that he didn't take all the ones on Friday is a concern because Friday's a light practice, usually 45 to 60 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It's generally it's very crisp. And you get out, you're done. It's a short practice, and he didn't take all the ones on Friday. I was kind of surprised by that.
Yeah.
Where Dickerson did, now he's got the questionable tag where he did take all the ones on Friday. That's a great sign. Now Quignon, it's not like the injury magically went away. It is a hamstring issue, but he took all the ones on Friday, and that barring something in pregame warmups, he's in the lineup.
Yep.
And thank goodness for the Eagles because we don't want to see Ringo and Jackson starting against or having to be the guys who are in the starting lineup with Justin Jefferson on the other side.
Right.
That would not be pretty.
Yeah, it looks like it'll be Adoree Jackson getting the start this time.
Correct.
I think even if Jalen Carter were to start the game, Greg, you're always going to wonder, can he make it through? Can he play at the level that you expect him to play at? Because as you've noticed on tape, he's been dealing with the shoulder, which he's not even on the report for. Now he's been dealing with the heel. He has not been the guy this year so far that we saw last year.
No, and that's absolutely true. The tape shows that. And they need him to be that guy with the players that they lost, and just the fact that we talked about this earlier in the week. They've not really been able to rush the quarterback the way they have. I mean, that has been in some ways a staple of this team as they built to being a Super Bowl participant and then a Super Bowl winner. The pass rush has been a major, major part of who they are as a team, and that has not been the case this year.
Right. All right, let's flip it over and talk about the Vikings injury report. So it looks like Andrew Van Ginkel is out for them. He's been declared out. He's a key piece of what they do on defense, but he's been out, I think, for a couple of games now.
What's his injury, Adam?
I believe it's a neck. I'll double check. I believe it's a neck injury. Van Ginkel's is a neck, and he is out. He just started working, but that's obviously big. AVG, as they say. Wasn't he a teammate of Zach Bond's at Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken?
I think he was. I mean, Greg might know that from tape.
I believe so. I think he's a little older than, maybe not, because don't forget, how many years did Bond spend in New Orleans? Probably about four, right? Wasn't it?
He spent 4.
Yes,
so this is
4.
his 6th year in the league.
I think they were teammates for sure. Yeah.
And sort of similar style players who can play the edge on the line and also at linebacker.
Yeah, a lot of those Wisconsin guys come into the league. They're edge rushers, and and Van Ginkel's actually turned out to be kind of a multi-dimensional player. He's more multi-dimensional in his deployment than Bond is, and he's turned out to be a very good player.
Yeah.
By the way, Greg, before Vic Fangio was coaching him, was Van Ginkel doing the stuff that he did for Vic? Had he been doing it before that? See, that isn't it amazing, Jeff? Bond seriously was not he was not a linebacker. Let's call it. He really wasn't.
Right.
And the fact that Vic saw something like really no one else saw, it's pretty remarkable. He did the same thing for Van Ginkel. Van Ginkel should give him a couple bucks for that. It's pretty interesting. Van Ginkel's making a lot of money, man. He got a big deal too.
Yeah, he got a big deal. Well, in their scheme, he's a really important. See, there's a great example. And I'm not saying he wouldn't be good somewhere else. You never know those things. Yeah. But in that particular scheme, he's a really good player.
All right, let's talk about some of their questionable guys, Adam, because I know you've got some intel on this, and there are some interesting ones. So Blake Cashman, their linebacker, is very good. He's in their 21-day window. He's coming off IR, so he's questionable to play. You getting any vibe?
He's not. Well, here's the deal. He's going to play. They made that pretty clear. He's going to play. They're going to activate him.
Okay.
They're going to activate him now. By the way, Carson Wentz's injury is his left shoulder, his non-throwing shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
He was fine with it. The ones that McCarthy will not play. In fact, he's going to be their emergency third quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, coming back from the left high ankle injury.
Yep.
But the fact that he worked during their bye week, and then this week, so they're hopeful that he'll be ready the week after. But what's interesting, Jeff, is you might have heard it if you listened to our show with Mike Mamula and Merrill Reese that we did this week. I asked Mike point blank, what would you do? Would you stick with the veteran Carson or go back to McCarthy? And I thought he might say this, but I didn't know until I asked him. And he said, no, I stick with the veteran. We got plenty of time to develop the quarterback. He said they should stick with Wentz. He was strong. He was strong. He didn't even think about it. Just came out right and said it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, look, it makes sense right now. And then I do wonder if the Vikings continue to win, if they beat the Eagles and whoever they play next week, if they kind of stick with Wentz until they feel like, I know they've kind of made it seem like they're going to go back to McCarthy once he's ready, but they have the Chargers up next and then the Lions. Those are two, and then the Ravens. So, well, the Ravens haven't played very well, but they're still what you think of as a formidable team. So if Carson Wentz is playing well, it makes you wonder if they stick with him there.
Yeah. Jonathan Grenard got hurt in Thursday's practice with a hamstring. He's terrific edge rusher. He's going to play, though. He got cleared Friday. Now, Brian O'Neill hurt his knee. He missed their last game.
Mm-hmm.
They're optimistic that he'll be back in the lineup at right tackle. Donovan Jackson's been cleared. He missed last week's game as well with the wrist injury. Michael Juergens, the backup guard center who was filling in for Ryan Kelly, he missed the previous game, but he's been cleared. He'll play. So, as I said, back to you, Jeff, they've had a ton of injuries. Their offensive line was down 3 starters, but they're looking pretty good to have most of them for this game.
Well, Greg, given what we've talked about with Carson Wentz, I would think having both offensive tackles healthy, having the first-round pick Jackson at guard, and then even the backup center instead of the third-string center in there makes it that much better of an environment for Carson.
Without question. And I think that the ancillary part to that is, can their run game at least be a factor? They don't have to rush for 180 yards, but Jordan Mason is kind of a tough physical inside runner. And we know that Kevin O'Connell does want to run the ball. This is not just a throw ball team. That's not the way he wants to play. Now, obviously in Pittsburgh, they were down in the second half and they probably had to drop Carson Wentz back more than they would like to. And that's one reason he had 5 or 6 sacks in that game. But I think that in an ideal world, that's not the way they want to play.
Right.
So, and Jordan Mason, you know what? For the first part of last season when McCaffrey was not there, he ran well. He ran hard. He's a certain kind of runner. He's a physical, grinded out type runner, not necessarily a big playback. But again, if you can stay ahead of the sticks and open up the playbook and do all those things, it really helps your offense.
All right. So let's stay on the offense, but let's talk as we get into it about the Eagles offense against this Vikings defense. First, we're going to hear a word from our great sponsors.
Hey, you know that one guy in the group chat who hit a 5-leg parlay week 1 and he wouldn't shut up about it for the rest of the season? Sounds like Caplan, right? Yeah, it could be him. It could be you, and we would all want to be you. MyBookie makes it stupid easy to get in on the action, whether it's college ball, NFL, super contest, and survivor pools, all the spreads, player props, and in-game lines that you could want all under one roof. What more could you want than that? If you're new to MyBookie, use our code THEBIRDS, THEBIRDS, the birds. Use the code, and any bet you choose up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your bet back bonus token. There is no better time to jump in right now. No better place to play. Football is back. Let's make some money with MyBookie.
Sports are all about competition. Every snap, every possession, every clutch moment matters. That same energy is what 1v1 Me brings to video games. Every single day, you can watch and stake on matchups in Madden, NBA 2K, FC, and Call of Duty Search and Destroy. All the games are streamed live. Every match has refs, and payouts are instant. And these aren't just random online lobbies. These are the best players in the scene, pros, streamers, and rivals. With season playoffs and the championship game on the line, every game matters. Over $100 million has already been paid out on the app, and the community is growing fast. If you're a sports fan, a gamer, or just someone who loves having a little extra on the line, 1v1 Me is where you need to be. It's not just about winning, it's about the bragging rights too. Every match has a chat going crazy, and you can back your picks in real time. Download today and use code BIRDS. Your first stake on the app is risk-free. That's code BIRDS for a risk-free first stake. All right, Greg, I'm very interested for your viewpoint, your tape study, observations on the Vikings defense, because I watched a bunch of their games, and they rank very high in pass defense, and they're among the bottom half to third in run defense. But watching them I don't know that I think that what they do well from the passing game is because they have great pass defense personnel, and what they don't do well from running game is because of great run or poor run defense personnel. It's almost the way that they play defense that really jumped out at me with Brian Flores.
It's schematic,
right,
more than anything. Now, they hardly play any cover one. They are not a man-to-man defensive team. But what they've always done under Brian Flores, and this is what's difficult for an O-line and theoretically for your quarterback too, is they will line up with pressure front looks, okay? They'll line up with 5, 6, sometimes 7 along the line of scrimmage. Now, they don't do that on every play, obviously, but when you do that, and we've seen what sometimes can happen when teams do that. I mean, I remember specifically when Jalen Hurts got sacked by Jaquan McMillan of the Broncos. You know, you may remember that play where the Broncos lined up, I believe, with 6 or 7 along their front. They dropped out the interior 3 or 4, and you know, Hufanga was the hot guy to start, but then McMillan became the free hitter. You know, I mean, it's the Vikings. Brian Flores is very good at those kinds of things, but he doesn't play man. So when people drop out, they drop out into zone coverage. Now, where Van Ginkel was outstanding was how he was a great dropper. And guys, he just knew, because, you know, that's all taught. I remember having this conversation with Adam's good buddy Ben Bloom when I was down in Tennessee, talking about the angle that guys drop out, because that's all coached. You don't just say, just drop out. You know, it's all coached based on splits, based on receiver, you know, and you know, that's something Van Ginkel's great at, so they're going to miss that. But that's what makes it difficult when you play against this team is these pressure front looks, and then what do they do from that?
Mm.
Yeah, to me, Greg, it makes it because you just basically have a second to make a decision on what you're going to do with your quarterback. Flores is so unpredictable. That's what makes him so great.
And they're not necessarily a high, you know, people think because they do that they're a really high percentage blitz defense. They're not necessarily. I mean, in a given game, they may. I mean, yeah, relative to the league, they are. I mean, they're third highest in blitz. But I mean, I remember in previous years, I felt like they blitzed at even a higher rate relative to this year, you know. So, and don't forget, part of that could have been too that Harrison Smith missed games. And that, even though he's not a blitzer, now you have to make sure the back end guys understand how to, because essentially they're a zone match team. They're not a man team, but you still have to match. And when you lose a player like Harrison Smith, who's really, really good at that because he's played a long time and is a very smart player, you know, that just changes a little bit of how you play.
How do they use Josh Metellus? Because he's an interesting player. He's being paid a lot of money too. What do you think of him?
Because he's their wild card. He lines up everywhere. See, there's a perfect example of a guy who came out of the Big Ten, Michigan, was not viewed as a big-time star, but then he gets into a system where it just, you know, they see what he can do, and they play to what he is. Because he's not, if you just said, oh, you're a safety, he wouldn't be a great safety. If you said you're a slot corner, he wouldn't be a great slot corner. But as a kind of a movable chess piece wild card who lines up in multiple places, that's part of it, of a really good scheme, he's a very effective player.
Greg, their front. Let's talk about their defensive front against the Eagles' offensive line, which has struggled. The run game has struggled. They are light up front.
Yes,
but they're also not unathletic though. They're fast. They move around. It looks like they get their linebackers crashing into the gaps against the run pretty quickly. So I've seen that they've allowed a few explosives. You know, they had to face Bijan Robinson. They faced the Steelers. Algier got them a little bit. Even
Gainwell.
Yeah,
Kenny Gainwell had a good game.
Kenny Gainwell, I think, had 99 yards rushing against them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it doesn't look to me like they're blown off the ball either. It just looks like to me that they're going so fast at times that they're a little bit sloppy with their tackling. But do you see this front as an opportunity for the Eagles to get their ground game going if they can, you know, execute their blocks correctly?
I mean, theoretically, yes. But, you know, because look, I think Cashman and being back, and again, we don't know how many snaps he will play. I mean, that's unknown at the moment. But Cashman's a really good player. Yeah. So now what you have is you know, Ivan Pace has been playing. He's an interesting player, but he's not big.
Yeah.
But he's a very good player. Eric Wilson, our old friend, he's been around the league. I tell you what, he probably had his worst stretch with Philly, but wherever else he's been a solid player. It's been odd because he was a solid player with Green Bay, and now he's a solid player with Minnesota. So it's just odd that when he was in Philly, it seemed like he was not a good player at all.
He struggled here, man.
Solid player. But I think, in an ideal world, Cashman, he makes a big Cashman's a really, really good player. I remember, I don't think you were there, Adam, but I remember talking with his agent when you were at the Combine a couple of years ago. Really nice guy.
Blake Barrett, yeah.
What's his name?
Blake Barrett.
That's it. Yeah. Really nice guy. And, he was actually asking me what I thought of him because he was going to be a free agent at that point. And I told him because he was with Houston and I thought he was a really good player.
Ironically, he's Jonathan Allen too.
Yeah. So, I mean, they have good players. I think a lot of times what happens too, Jeff, because there's so much moving around with their defense that sometimes guys get out of gaps.
That's exactly what I thought I saw, Greg. I didn't see a D-line or a front that was just getting blown off the ball, sort of the way a couple of years ago when the Eagles played the Vikings and they were struggling with the pass. They gave the ball to DeAndre Swift, and they literally just blew the Vikings.
That usually doesn't happen to them, but they get out of gaps. There's a lot of moving pieces, and just like in the pass game, they do give up plays. I mean, it's not like you can't score on this team at all, and they do give up plays. And when you look at the corners, I know Isaiah Rodgers is there. He had a nice year in Philly last year, and he's certainly an above-average corner, but he's not a shutdown player. I think you can attack them. We talked about this earlier in the week. It would not surprise me if A.J. Brown got over the top a couple of times in this game. I think this is a defense you can do that too, based on, Byron Murphy plays outside in their base, but he's really a slot corner. He's a very good slot corner, but he plays outside in their base.
Rodgers is a small frame guy. He's athletic, we know.
Yeah.
He's a good player, Jeff, but physically he's not the biggest guy in the world. I agree with Greg. They're not great at corner. Just have a scheme that sometimes it's hard to decipher and figure out.
Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah. And there's going to be plays in every game where they make you look silly just because that's the way they play, but you can make plays against them. They're never like the number one defense in the league in terms of yards allowed or, you can make plays.
Right. They'll give up a little bit for the sake of trying to break down your scheme or confuse your quarterback.
But they will confuse you. I mean, remember last year when Aaron Rodgers totally got confused and threw the interception right to Van Ginkel? And that's Aaron Rodgers, one of the smartest quarterbacks who ever played.
Yep. Yeah. So the Vikings have seen the run game against them at a 49.3% clip. It's the second highest in the NFL. But that can be a little misleading because they've also played some teams that like to run. We talked about the Steelers. We talked about the Falcons. And obviously they played some teams with bad quarterbacks, Browning, Gabriel. The fact that they've seen that much running, but they've only allowed the 8th most rushing yards in the league shows you that they're not pushovers because teams are running the ball at them more than anybody other than I think the Jets, but they're not hemorrhaging rushing yards. But they will give up some explosives. And I wonder, Greg, I noticed that the Falcons, and I don't know if they always do this, I'm guessing they do, they ran a lot against the Vikings out of the pistol formation.
Well, the Falcons, you're talking about the Falcons?
Yeah, when they're
a pistol team. 71 of Bijan Robinson's 83 rushes this year have come out of the pistol. They play out of the pistol more than twice as much as the next team. They're in the pistol on about 55% of their offensive snaps.
Well, it feels like it's something maybe.
I'm not saying that makes it a bad analogy, but that's who the Falcons are.
Yeah, that's what I thought, and because they did it so much, and just watching how you get less of a tell because the running back is directly behind the quarterback as opposed to the left or the right, which can sort of sometimes dictate the pathway. I wonder if one of the things that the Eagles might try to switch up, because they have run some pistol this year, is just trying to get their running game going out of the pistol more.
Well, it's funny because Atlanta, most people say if you're in the pistol as opposed to the gun, that you have a greater variety in your run game, because in the gun, people believe you're a little limited, Mm-hmm. But the funny thing about the Falcons is even though they're in the pistol so much, and as I mentioned, 71 of Bijan's 83 runs have come out of pistol, it's literally all outside zone. They lead the league in running outside zone. by
be seeing a lot of that,
the
Jeff.
biggest margin. They are an outside zone team. Now,
Yeah.
again, could the Eagles look at that game? Because the coaching staff is looking at everything.
Yeah.
They're trying to win games now. They're just trying to turn over every stone right now. I mean, that's what coaches do. The players might get some time off, but there's no rest for the weary here. I mean, they got to figure out a way to win this game. So I don't know if the Eagles will take a page out of the Falcons book, and be in the pistol more. The Falcons are a heavy outside zone team. Of course, the Eagles can run outside zone. They can run anything when their O-line is playing well and it's Barkley. But I don't know if they'll do that. But I think that you have to, in a week like this where you have to win this game, you're coming off. Your offense is not, even though you're 4-2, there's no one in that building that's going to think, Jeff, that boy, our offense is looking good. There's no one who's thinking that. Okay,
really?
Coaches don't think their offense look good when they score 50. So there's no way they think their offense is going to look good now. So they're going to leave no stone unturned. They're going to try to figure this out. They'll look at other teams, see what other teams have had success doing. Because the Eagles, I'm sure, believe with a full complement in their O-line, and it appears as if Landon Dickerson will go. Yeah. They're going to believe that they can run the ball against this team. Now, they believe that every week, and it hasn't happened this year because, quite frankly, the O-line has not played well. But, now you still have to hang your hat on your O-line. You have no choice. You don't have other options here.
Right. Jeff, one thing, and we don't know whether the run outside zone or even have a toss right or toss left because they just haven't done it. Now, it could be a physical thing. It seems like it is. We're not sure. But we're going to learn a lot more in this game on Sunday about where they are physically. Because you have a front that's – remember, Javon Hargrave does not stop the run well, and he's a smaller guy comparatively. Okay? Mm-hmm. Jonathan Allen's up there. Was a great player in his day.
Grenard's not big either.
What's that?
Grenard's not big either.
No, well, John Grenard's right. He's an excellent pass rusher.
Yeah.
And Van Ginkel's not playing. So this is an opportunity to run. That's all it is. Until they show us they can do it, prove it to us because they haven't been able to do it at all this season. Yeah. Save Saquon saving the day as we broke down on inside the tape on those first two runs where he actually was the one who made it.
The best run stuffer they have is probably Jalen Redmond. He's a big guy, and he's really solid and strong as an interior D tackle.
The Vikings have had to play base defense an inordinate amount this year because I mentioned not only are they seeing the third most or the second highest rate of runs, they're seeing the third highest rate of 12 personnel in the NFL.
Wow.
So I imagine the Eagles now we mentioned.
Well, they've played. It's funny you say that because they've played 61% of their snaps in base defense, which is an inordinately high percentage.
Right.
They've not played. They've only played about 23% in nickel and maybe 15% in dime. They've played a ton of base defense this year.
Jeff, Jalen Redmond is number 61. Okay. He's out of Oklahoma. He was an undrafted free agent for the Panthers at 23. This kid is bounced around on and off, but now he's starting. Give this guy credit. It's a good story. But look, he's a guy that was not drafted. So if you look at this D line, it's very beatable. There's a reason why they've given up some games, some big yardage games in rushing. Kenny Gainwell, of all people, almost had 100 yards.
Yeah, but you got to remember that what the Steelers did a lot, and I'm sure Greg saw it on tape. I mean, not only in that game, they played an extra guard. So they were playing 6 offensive linemen and their big what's that big ass tight end's name? Mount Washington, they call him.
Darnell Washington.
Oh my God. So they're literally putting 7 or 8 people over 265 to 300. Yeah. And that limits what you can do from a passing game. So they clearly, I don't know what to make of the fact that the Vikings have been they've been in base because teams are constantly heavy up front against them. And I sort of take that as teams don't really want to mess around too much in the passing game against Brian Flores. They're trying to stabilize their offense, stay ahead of the sticks, and give themselves better third downs. Because if you get behind schedule on this Flores defense, you're going to be seeing a lot of different rushers from different angles.
Right. So
it's like a sign of respect.
But also, but Jeff, it's also matchups. If your line, look at this heavy offensive line. Let's just take it for what we know that they've struggled this year, but you see their Eagles' massive offensive line, right?
Yep.
Against that front, they should be able to run the ball.
I agree.
I don't think it's a matter of you can't throw it. Of course you can.
Look, I think you could make the argument that for the last 2 years, how long has Dickerson been here? Landon Dickerson.
This is his 5th year.
I thought it was 4. I know he's got 3 straight Pro Bowls, and I thought
certainly. So let's go back the last 3 years.
Yeah,
You could
fifth year. This is
easily
fifth.
make the argument that the left side of their offensive line, okay, with
Mhm.
Mailata and Dickerson, was the best run blocking duo in the league.
Wow.
Okay, I think that's a fair argument that can
Okay.
be made.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I know you don't do rankings, but that's a strong statement. You would know. You watch all 32
Yeah.
tapes.
Now it hasn't been that way this year, and I
No.
think you can make that statement too,
Not
based
even
on
the
film.
fact, Greg, I would say that this is probably a bottom half of the NFL in offensive line right now.
But I mean, those two guys, Jeff, I mean, they were the best duo in terms of run blocking,
Right.
in the league, and it's not been that way now, and that's a big deal.
Right.
Hey, Jeff, you know the Cosell line? It's in there. It's there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's hope it's there for their sake, because Greg just outlined it. They were the best.
Right.
Is it
Every
still,
season is
there?
different. Every coach will tell you that. They'll tell you every week is different, much less every season.
Sure.
But every season is different, but the bottom line is, because I hear that a lot I hear a lot on social media when people tell me I don't know anything about football. They say, well, then the Eagles have to do different things. Well, yes and no. I mean, you still have to play to what your players are.
Right.
Like you can't all of a sudden do something that your players can't do, or you don't feel that they can do.
Right.
I mean,
based on what we've just talked about and how the Vikings play D, I would say the key for the Eagles is to get an early run game going, but not just stay ahead of schedule, stay ahead of the sticks. When you do run well, go to your no huddle, because the Vikings can substitute quite a bit if they want to. Go to your no huddle and then set up some favorable passing situations for you where you're not letting the Vikings tee off on you and show you all these multiple fronts and show you these disguises. You negate that if you can run the ball well, and then maybe even set up some RPO, and then you take your shots when they're there.
I agree. I think the no huddle is critical in this game, but the key to that is you've got to get ahead of the sticks.
Right. Sometimes we say, like, this might be the day where you just come out throwing, but I don't think that that's a great thing for this offense right now. I think they need to reestablish dominance in the trenches and their run game, and then work off of that against this team.
Although it wouldn't surprise me if they took a shot early, just to
sure,
say, hey, we can take a shot.
But overall, Jeff, this team, when they're at their best, we saw it last year, they're running the hell out of it, and they work off of that. And it's just it. And also, we all know this. Offensive linemen love it when they're getting off the ball. It's just they feel when they're feeling it. Yep. Like last year, all NFL film stuff. That when they're mic'd, it's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of who they are.
Yeah.
So
right.
But you're right, Jeff. I mean, I think this is a game, and I mentioned this earlier, where I think you will have some opportunities to hit AJ Brown over the top. Devonta too, theoretically, sure. But I mean, AJ has been that guy since his time in Philly. And I mean, I think you have to take that shot in this game a couple of times. You can't, you don't condense your own offense.
Right. All right, let's get into the Eagles defense against the Minnesota offense. And again, we will pause real quick for a word from our great sponsors. Hey, fall is planting season. Did you know that many plants and trees actually do better when planted this time of the year? But you got to know where to start, and that's why I love fastgrowingtrees.com. Doesn't matter if you live in the sunny south or if the air's getting a little chilly where you are, the plant experts can help you find the perfect fit for your space. They've got everything your yard needs: fruit trees, privacy trees, shrubs, flowering trees, so much more. And Fast Growing Trees makes it so easy for you to have your dream yard, because you can order online and get your plants delivered directly to your door. If you're like me, you're tired of spending way too much money on landscaping. And if you walk into one of those nurseries and you look at all the stuff they have, you have no idea where to begin. That's why you need fastgrowingtrees.com. Doesn't matter about the size of your yard. They got over 6,000 plants to fit any space, and a 14-point quality checklist ensures you will get the best quality plants possible. This fall, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And listeners to our show get 15% off their first purchase when using the code BIRDS at checkout. 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code BIRDS at checkout. Now's the perfect time to plant. Use BIRDS to save today. The offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Check out the link below or in the show notes and support the show. Hey, Philly fans, game day is stressful enough. Parking, traffic, long lines. We've all been there. But when it comes to your cannabis, Camden Apothecary makes it easy. This is the dispensary for sports fans, just minutes outside of Philly with plenty of free parking. You'll be in and out fast, no hassle, no waiting. And they don't just care about convenience. Camden Apothecary is all about the guest experience. Their staff makes sure you feel taken care of every time you walk in. Plus, they carry only the best quality cannabis at the fairest prices. So whether you're stocking up for the tailgate, the watch party, or celebrating a big win, you know you're getting the good stuff without overpaying. They even show love to the community with specials for fans, students, service members, and healthcare pros. Camden Apothecary, top quality cannabis, great prices, and an experience made for Philly fans 21 and up. All right, so we mentioned up front that the Eagles have not been rushing the passer well, that Jalen Carter himself has not been playing well, and we'll see if he's even playing in the game. But we talked about what the keys are offensively. I think defensively, I think if it's not sacking, it's got to be harassment. It's got to be getting Minnesota and getting Carson uncomfortable in the pocket. He will give you opportunities if you can get him uncomfortable. And obviously the Vikings, Adam, benefit from having their offensive line a little bit more intact. So you if you're Vic, you may think again, and now you don't have Zadarius Smith. This guy might have to blitz even more than he's been blitzing already.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Eagles pass rush.
Heavy sigh there. Heavy sigh.
Yeah, the Eagles pass rush simply. I mean, with you mentioned it was Zadarius Smith. Nolan Smith's not ready yet. Sometime, hopefully, for their sake, early after the bye, that he'll be back. But as Greg told us as many times, he learned from his late friend Rod Rust, who I actually met sitting at NFL Films. Rod's a super nice guy. When you can't get home with 4, you bring 5. You can't get home with 5, you bring 6.
Mm-hmm.
This is an offensive line that could be beat. It's not bad, but they're beat up a little bit.
Well, I think the most fascinating thing about the Eagles defense this year is how much cover 1 they've played.
Which they were not doing at all last year. Or not
which is usually man defense, right?
Yeah. It's cover 1 is man covered with a single high safety.
Mm-hmm.
And given their issues at corner, that's, again, I'm not as smart as Vic Fangio, so I'm not going to sit here and say he's right or wrong. Just surprising that they played so much cover 1. They've played cover 1 on probably 45% of their snaps versus opposing, quarterback dropbacks. Now, if Quinyon Mitchell can go, this will definitely be a game where he will be the man.
He's going to play. It's a matter of, okay, opposite him is Jackson. So you asked me about the pass rush. I think it's kind of a scene, like they'll have a plan. Obviously, you always have a plan, but it's not a game. Carson Wentz is a big dude. Again, he's back athletically. But
I could almost see, I didn't mean to interrupt you, just a thought hit me, Yeah. I could almost see if they feel Quinyon Mitchell is true. I mean, I know he doesn't have an injury designation, but if they really feel he's truly healthy with no limitations to his game, I could see them, and I'm just throwing this out. I don't know. They might not do this at all. Line up in a quarter structure, have Mitchell, in a sense, play 0 man on Jefferson. Hey, Quinyon Mitchell's our guy. He's a top 5 corner in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then have the safety to that side pretty much poach and work toward the other side because, and basically just to let Quinyon play 0 man on Jefferson. Now, they're not, like I said, something like that wouldn't happen on every single snap, but I could see that happening depending on if Jefferson is the boundary X, let's say, on given plays, I could see them doing that.
So you're basically trying to take both guys out instead of one or the other.
You're basically
taking one guy out with man coverage.
Best corner on Jefferson with 0 man, and then having 5 or 6 defenders that can play to the trip side, and you can win the numbers game over there.
Yeah.
But in terms of pressure, to me, this is one you feel like this is where Carter comes in. If pregame warm-ups go well with the heel, I know the shoulder's not on the injury report, but you simply don't know what he is physically right now because
he hasn't been a really good pass rusher this year.
I know. That's what I was going to get to. So, Jeff, if he'd been normal, I'm not blitzing because he could beat this up. They don't have any studs on their offensive line other than Darrisaw. Darrisaw's just come back from his ACL.
No, O'Neal's pretty good, isn't he?
He's a right tackle. I'm talking about the interior where he lines up.
Interior.
Right. Let me make that clear. In the interior, I mean, this is something you would normally think he could win. My buddy who has who does pro personnel from another team told me because he did a study on the Eagles. He said it's very rare that Carter would not win a 1-1, but that's what I told you months ago. Double teams, he rarely beat them.
Mm-hmm.
But now that he's not himself, you simply have to bring pressure. But you don't. Fancher's not a 50% blitz guy. He's not doing that.
No, he's not going to do that.
But I think at the minimum, though, and I'll send this back to you, is selectively blitz.
Mm-hmm.
And Wentz is a never say die guy. He doesn't give up. That's why he'll turn the ball over, even when he's mentally and physically right.
Mm-hmm.
He'll take a sack. He might throw a pick, as you were alluding to earlier. So I'm going to be interested to see what their approach is, because Greg talked about that awful game last year remember when Wentz was totally lost with Washington? He was terrible against the Eagles. Terrible.
Right.
So
if you remember when we were talking about the Eagles pass rush and how to improve it, we said one thing that people felt were getting misled by was the idea that Nakobe Dean could just go play linebacker and you move Jihad Campbell to the outside, because our constant rebuttal to that was, well, who are you taking off the field on the edges then if you're moving Jihad Campbell there? Well, guess what? Since that discussion, Zadarius Smith has taken himself off the field by retiring. So I actually think now, which a totally different equation and this conversation, it might make a little more sense if you feel Nakobe Dean is up to it and he got his legs under him against the Giants, maybe start playing Jihad Campbell on the edge more.
Greg, in college at Alabama, I know he would transition to inside backer, but as just a pass rusher, what do you remember about his tape as a pass rusher? Jihad. Anything offhand?
I mean, I could look at my notes, but I don't remember him being like, oh my God, look at this guy. He's an unbelievable pass rusher.
Okay.
I mean, he did rush the quarterback for sure.
Yeah.
But I didn't look at him and think this guy's going to come into the NFL and be a pass rusher.
Right. But in fairness, he didn't get a whole lot of opportunities because they had Will Anderson, and who's the other guy that they had?
Dallas Turner was there.
Oh, Dallas Turner. He's on the Vikings right now.
Yeah,
right?
You'll see him on the other side. He starts now. Yeah.
By the way, I noticed that Dallas Turner, when they had Van Ginkel and Grenard healthy, right, they would use Dallas Turner on the line a little bit to give him a little extra juice up front. But now he basically has to stand up and play
starting for
outside linebacker. Yeah.
He did brush the quarterback. I'm looking at my my notes. Okay. So what I said was wrong. Because here's a note I made. As an edge pass rusher, showed explosive get off, striking with hands, with bend and flexibility to flatten rush path. And then I said in my transition, I said, will Campbell project as a stacked linebacker, or will teams see him as a sub front edge pass rusher or linebacker? My sense is he will project, and obviously this turned out to be wrong, project as a sub package player early in his career with his ability to both rush the quarterback and effectively play underneath zone coverage. So he did rush the quarterback at Alabama.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But Jeff, this is what we were talking about weeks or months ago, that he's really ahead of schedule. This is not
right.
No one really saw him, and I'm not saying he's been perfect. I mean, he's had some issues against the run lately, but overall, Jeff, he's so much farther ahead.
But he's a twitchy kid. I mean, he's got, I said that he looked like a different player as an edge pass rusher based on his college tape, with sudden twitch off the ball, using his hands. He could bend. He's flexible. He had closing burst. I mean, to me, he actually looked better now that I'm remembering my notes. I seeing my notes and remembering him. He actually looked better as an edge pass rusher than he did as a stacked backer.
At Bama, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what, Jeff? I think it's time that Vic, it comes down to this. What's the best decision for your football team?
Mm-hmm.
If Dean's all the way back, you start working him in an inside backer. Their pass rush is below average. Let's call it what it is.
Right.
Particularly because of Carter and his problems with his injuries.
Well, Milton Williams has been a big loss.
That one too, and Sweaty. Yeah. And
Sweat had a good year last year. I mean, he had that down year where everybody thought he was done. Probably all of us
23.
did. And then he had a pretty good year last year.
Greg, what would be your concern level from a run game standpoint, run defense for the Eagles, without Zadarius Smith, who is by far and away their tallest and biggest edge rusher? There will probably be snaps out there where you have a 226-pound Uche at the edge and then a 240-pound Ojulari. Actually, I think Ojulari is like 235. I mean, they're going to be at times very light on the edges. Do the Vikings typically run outside zone or inside zone? Not that always matters, by the way.
Yeah, I think they run kind of both. I don't know. I can't remember specifically what's a higher percentage.
Right.
But Mason is an inside type runner. You're not looking to get Mason on the edges.
Okay.
Because that's not his strength. You've got to play to what his strength is.
Right.
You're not going to be taught. Now, I'm not saying you're never going to run pin pull ever, but he's not a guy you're looking to get on the perimeter.
Sure.
So it has to be tough inside running.
Right.
And
you
watch
can run
this.
inside, but you can be an inside runner and get a great seal block by your right tackle and your right guard and sort of squeeze that hole on the right side that's still inside, but not necessarily an outside run. And that's where the Eagles have to be careful with their lightness.
Yeah. But I mean, he's really one of those guys that's a grinder. He's a sustainer. I mean, I think that ultimately, when you think about Kevin O'Connell and his background, they're a zone team more than a gap scheme team. So now you get into the delineations, Jeff, between the different kinds of zone runs. Some teams call inside zone, then you get mid zone versus
wide zone,
mid zone or stretch zone. Is it wide zone? I mean, you get into all those delineations, and every team sort of, names those things differently.
Stefanski does
more
that.
Of a zone team than a gap scheme.
Yeah, Stefanski says, wide zone, mid zone. Oh, by the way, now the other kid, 36, Xavier Scott, we talked about him briefly with a show earlier this week. He's a good football player. He's kind of worked his way up. He's now the number 2.
Yeah.
So Aaron Jones comes back. So he's a big kid. He had a fumble. They benched him briefly a couple games ago, but he's definitely the backup. He can catch the football. He's a good player, man. This kid from Maine who was with
from
the
Maine. He's a big kid too. He's about 220. He's a big kid.
You're going to see him on third.
Yeah, the Black Bear. Yeah,
Black Bear. Right.
Maine Black Bears. Yeah.
Shout out to Danny Collins, local South Jersey kid who played quarterback there.
All right.
So, all right, that's good. We've analyzed this game every way we can, offensively and defensively, and we're going to end it the same way we always do. We are going to predict the score and the MVP.
I'm going
of
last.
the game.
How do you predict? I'm saying this honestly.
Sure.
Because I did give this maybe 15 seconds of thought today. So
appreciate that.
Wow.
Yeah. How do you honestly predict what the Eagles are right now? I don't know how to do that.
You don't.
Let's say all of a sudden the Eagles look like the Eagles. Okay. Could they win this game 30-21? They could.
Yeah.
Let's say they look like the Eagles against this run defense, and all of a sudden Barkley runs for 150. I mean,
on the carpet. Yeah.
You
could.
I don't know. I'm just being honest. I'm just making up a guess here because I have no idea what to expect from the Eagles. Because sometimes teams that do have a championship pedigree can get it back together, and a certain kind of opponent can help them do that. Or sometimes a team just snowballs no matter what in the wrong direction. I don't know where they are right now.
Well, let me ask you, Greg, given what you just said, what do you think the line is? I know you don't pay attention to that stuff.
I don't have any idea.
So it's a good question to ask you. What do you think the odds makers think of this game? And
I would think that Minnesota would be favored by more than the 3.5 points that I think is normally considered like a home advantage. Is that true?
3 points for home. Yeah.
All right. So I would think they'd be favored by more, but again, I don't know. This is not my area of expertise.
Clearly, the Eagles are 2.5 point road favorites.
That's because of their pedigree. They're Super Bowl champions.
It's because of everything you just said.
Right.
People who do this for a living, who make odds, don't want to pick that week where the Eagles actually play like the Eagles and go and rout a team that they're clearly on paper better than, but haven't been playing necessarily better than.
Because we live in a world of so much media, social media, and everything gets evaluated week to week. People would I be surprised if all of a sudden Barkley ran for 150 this week? I wouldn't be surprised, because of the fact that they're capable of it and the opponent, Right. But on the other hand, if he rushed 15 for 42, I wouldn't be surprised by that either.
Sure.
I don't know how to answer this. So having said all that, we just analyzed the game. I hope people take the analysis more than my BS pick right now.
Well, start us off, Greg. What is your BS pick?
I'm gonna pick the Vikings, and not because I have any great, feel. I just feel like they're coming off a bye. They're playing pretty good ball. I'm gonna pick them to win 27-20. Just. That's what I'm going to do.
All right. And who's your player of the game then?
You know what?
Don't say
This
it.
might sound crazy,
Don't
but
say it.
I'm gonna pick T.J. Hawkinson.
Okay.
Really? Wow.
If you had said Carson Wentz, the Eagle fan really thought you would be trolling them. So that's
No.
good.
Well, Hawkinson. Okay.
Hawkinson,
Good
I
say,
like it. All right, good. Adam, what about you?
I thought you were going to go for. Okay.
Adam doesn't
me
want to go. So
I'm
yeah.
going to go. So here's what I have.
Okay.
I have my issues with the Eagles here with Dickerson. Yes, he's been cleared to play, but will he last? Carter's clearly not himself. Greg has outlined it from his tape study. Now he's got this new heel injury. But had he been the man that he was last year, I would have loved the Eagles big in this game. I don't care if Wentz is playing well or not. Carter is a home wrecker when he's himself. But then with Minnesota, I look at the problems they have at corner. This is a beatable secondary.
Yeah, it is.
I like the fact that they're on the carpet here. They had a little bit of extra time off. I'm going to give the Eagles coaches credit in terms of they know that Stout is the chief leader of this. He's got to get this run game going. It's his responsibility as the run game designer. I think this is a really tight game. Van Ginkel not playing is a huge deal. I cannot underestimate how big of a deal that is. Therefore, I'm going to go with the Eagles 24-20.
All right, Eagles 24. At first, I wasn't sure where you were going with.
I know. I honestly,
you're freaking writing a novel here. I thought.
I was trying to.
Score.
Unlike you, I actually try to give people some information. No, but anyway, I look. It's a tough one, but I'm weighing what's gone from both teams. It could go either way.
Yeah,
but this is. I don't do must wins this early, but I'm feeling like these coaches are going to take good use of their time off. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do appreciate that you gave your most thoughtful, insightful commentary for the part of the show that matters the least. That's good. Really nice. The score prediction. I did that thing where I rationalized. I went back and forth just like we did.
Oh, you're going.
And I gave myself so many reasons to agree with Greg that the Vikings were going to win, and then I decided to pick the Eagles anyway, 23-20. So
23-20.
Yeah, 23-20. Saquon Barkley is going to be my player of the game, and I just have this feeling it's like a tie game. He breaks a long run with very little time left.
I'm feeling
tackled, and he sets up a field goal that they win, and they win ugly on a field goal, and nobody's happy about it in the long run.
They'll be pissed, right?
That sounds a lot like an Eagles win these days. So that's good. That's what I say. Eagles 23, Vikings 20 with Saquon as the MVP. That's going to do it for this episode of the Inside the Birds pregame show. For Greg Cosell, I'm Geoff Mosher, and that's Adam Caplan. We thank you all for watching and enjoy your football.